everyone, Rascal here.
And Mama, welcome to World of Paws podcast.
Today we're covering the live-action adaptation of the novel series Artemis Fowl. Just when you thought nothing could top the Last Airbender movie, this movie found a way.
Now for decades, people who grew up reading this book series has been waiting for a movie franchise to bring the story to life. And thanks to Disney, we're still waiting.
Yep!
This movie only follows 8% of the book and instead becomes a generic sci-fi fantasy kids movie that only made zero profits with also enraged fans of all.
Right. Like, oh, this movie's so awful! And before we start, be sure to like, subscribe, and notification bell to get updates in future podcasts and our World of Paws series.
But not an Artemis Fowl sequel.
No! Because this movie cannot! If they make a sequel, they have lost their minds!
Rotten Tomatoes was pretty generous, giving it an 8% rating because it really should have gotten a 0.
Right!
And the first thing we want to say before we head into this, because this is World of Paws, so there's no holding back, you cannot fault the actors. They can only perform the scripts and the information they're given.
Right.
So you can't blame them.
Right.
And we have nothing bad to say about the actors and actresses in this movie. Because again, if you said, hey, I'm going to pay you to make this movie, every one of us would say, okay, and do the movie.
Right.
And it wouldn't matter how the movie was.
Right.
Or if we knew the source material or not. So, this is not to bash on the actors and actresses. This is to bash where it belongs.
Right. Where to start with this catastrophe? Well, first,
if you have not read the series Artemis Fowl books, Rascal, tell them a really brief synopsis of what the series is.
Okay.
Yes.
It's supposed to be a 12-year-old genius and criminal mastermind, basically, and his interactions with the fairy world. Not to be confused with Fairly Odd Parents. It's sort of like a Die Hard, as they call it. It's been described as Die Hard with fairies, and it's supposed to be
fairies,
like
trolls,
dwarves,
and
goblins. Yes,
and centaurs.
Interactions with these creatures he thought that were fake or fairy tale, and they turned out to be real, and it's more of like a cop show type thing with the story. And
the thing that stands out most about this particular series is it's fantastic. Every single book was brilliantly written by Owen Colfer.
Yes, who's the author.
And it is absolutely brilliant, and after you finish reading it, you can't wait to see the movie.
Yes.
You can't, and while you're reading it, you're going, gosh, this would be fantastic as a movie. This is just brilliant. Everything in every single book is excellent. I had heard of the series, but never read it.
And for me, all I knew about the movie, I never knew it was a book. And they were pushing the heck out of the movie. And like, oh, you gotta see this, can't wait to see it. And then we were seeing a bunch of comments on YouTube. People were saying, this looks awful, this is nothing like the book.
So we said we need to read it first because, as you know, in the past, we've made the mistake of watching a movie before reading the source material, thinking, hey, this movie wasn't bad. Why is everybody... Oh.
Yes.
So this time we decided to read the book series first. So we read all 8 volumes. And as we said, it is fantastic and it is brilliant. And each book actually deserved to have its own movie.
Yes, and that's what people thought it was going to be. And I'm only planning to read maybe 1 or 2 books, and they said they're only adapting 1 or 2 books for this particular film. Reason why they had tried to squish both books made no sense because there was too much story, but again, they tried. And I read the first book, and then I gave it to Mama, and it was so darn good, and I could see why they were upset.
I read the prologue, and the first paragraph in the prologue, I was hooked. Now, that's some pretty darn good writing.
Yes.
And I know that it is categorized under elementary, but this book is for anyone of any age to read. There is no way in heck this should have been pigeonholed under that genre.
Well, thanks to Disney, it was. And before we get into this movie, we must say that Disney actually bought the film rights and eventually publishing rights to Artemis Fowl.
Back in 2002? 2001.
Right when the book was first out.
And then guess what they did, because you just understand why. They sat on it for 19 years.
Yes. And this was considered competition for Harry Potter. So it seems like this was a little bit of saboteur going on with Disney sitting on the rights to this movie, and they've been working on it for 20 years and hadn't done anything with it. So it looks like they really want Harry Potter to be the top of the game for the fantasy movie genre and magic instead of Artemis Fowl, which according to critics would have been serious competition.
Absolutely. So we read all 8 books, and then we said, hey, now's the perfect time to subscribe to Disney Plus.
Yes.
Because, interestingly enough, and we've got to tell you this, you cannot buy this movie on Amazon. If you buy it on eBay, it is being horribly overpriced.
Yes.
You cannot get it from the library. You cannot see it on any other streaming service except for Disney Plus.
Right.
So since we wanted to be able to not only do a podcast on the movie itself, but also tell you more about the book series, so a combo podcast.
Yes.
We subscribe to Disney Plus.
Right. And this was actually meant to be a theater. They put it out on DVD, but there were, I guess, limited copies because it's really hard to find on DVD. It was meant to be in theaters, but after the pandemic happened and shut down all the theaters, they moved directly to Disney Plus as one of their first films as an original, which was a smart idea because this movie would have made, it still would have made nothing. There would have been more people being angry about this movie and they paid money to see it and wasted $30 on tickets. Because this movie does nothing like the book. I'm surprised they even kept the names and they didn't change Artemis into a girl like the name suggests.
As you can tell, Rascal is very passionate about her distaste for this movie.
Yes, we
So,
heard.
we're gonna be good reviewer, bad reviewer.
Yes.
She's gonna be. I'm gonna be Nightwing.
Right? And I'll be Damian Wayne just tearing this to shreds.
So now, what you've been waiting for, here's the truth about the Artemis Fowl movie. Rotten Tomatoes was generous with 8%. It should have gotten a 0. No, I'm sorry. It should have gotten a 3. Artemis Fowl, the title, because that is correct. It took place in Ireland, which was brilliant.
Right.
And, okay, 2%. 2%! 2%!
Yes! Wow, this movie got like, we haven't seen, like I said, Last Airbender we thought was the worst candidate for adaptation.
And I remember when we started watching it, and I think we were 10 minutes in.
We were already disinterested.
I said, I thought The Last Airbender was bad.
And like
oh my God.
From the time it opens, the opening, already was nothing like the book. It opens with one character getting arrested and there's cops and news everywhere, which is not how the book opened up. It was very calm, but there's a song of news feed and everything, and it's just all mayhem as soon as the movie starts. Like, and then one of the characters named Mulch Diggums, who's played by Josh Gad for some reason. A giant dwarf.
Which doesn't exist in the books at all.
And they never explain why is he a giant dwarf. We're not going to tell you. Why? It's just something that's funny. It's like, you didn't want to get Peter Dinklage or something to play him?
That would have been an excellent... Okay, we'll go into our casting later. But first, let's get into the actual casting for this movie. First, it was directed by Kenneth Branagh.
Yes,
I've seen other movies that he's done besides Thor. And in honesty, Thor is the best thing he's done. Yeah. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
So, what was really stand out about this movie is that Disney does what Disney has become famous for and is an expert at. Taking the source material and totally doing the opposite of everything that the source material has.
Yes!
And this was no different, except that it was done on a massive scale.
Right!
Everything about this movie, except for the title, Artemis Fowl, it taking place in Ireland, is totally different from the book.
Right.
Let's start with the characters.
Okay, so we have Ferdius Shaw as Artemis Fowl, who's the grandson of Robert Shaw, and this is his first acting career. And a lot of people feel sorry for him.
His first acting job.
Yes.
Okay.
And a lot of people feel sorry for him because his first role is the worst movie you've ever seen in your life. And Artemis in here, this is the second, okay, he's nothing like in the book. And here he's warm-hearted. They describe for the casting, he's warm-hearted and friendly. He loves life. He jokes around. He surfs. He skateboards. He's just a normal, average boy. Oh, he loves
who
his
dresses
dad.
in the most current fashion.
Yeah. No. It's like...
This is totally opposite of the book.
And that's what pissed off people. One of the things that pissed them them off even more than anything else was changing Artemis to being just like every other kid.
Now, throughout the entire movie, except for one scene, this character is played against character.
Yes.
The best scene in this movie done by Ferdia, as well as the best scene and only
the
scene in the
movie
movie that slightly resembled the actual book was the scene where he's in the psychiatrist's office at the school he's at, the boarding school. Ferdia Shaw did an excellent job in this scene.
For 3 minutes, yeah.
All I kept thinking was, this is Artemis Shaw here. Why isn't he acting like this the entire movie? Why is this not how the rest of the movie takes place? It was so close to the source material. There was like
they like 2 dialogue
deviated
changes.
a couple places.
Yeah.
But he was fantastic in this scene. He was spot on. You got Artemis Fowl in this scene. All the way from the beginning to the moment he walked out and flung the door open and walked out.
And then that was really him leaving. So
yeah, and then Artemis
comes
Fowl left the building and he was not seen since, but a reasonable facsimile took his place.
Right. And in the book, Artemis is, well, he's 12, but he doesn't act 12, period. He acts like an adult the entire series.
So I'm going on 40.
Yeah. He doesn't act like a kid, period. And Kenneth Branagh read the book like weeks before they told him, you got to film this movie.
What was interesting, he said that both of his kids had read the book.
Yes.
But clearly, he didn't read the book before he wrote the script. And his children probably didn't tell him, Daddy, this is nothing.
Right!
Like the book.
and I was described as, like I said, as being kind of cold. He's just cold. He's a villain for the first book and maybe the second book too for a little bit. Mm-hmm. But in here, they went from villain to hero because Kenneth Branagh thought people who did not read the books weren't going to understand a 12-year-old villain, and he decided it's going to be an origin story and him going from hero to villain.
So clearly he's never watched any anime, he's never watched any superhero movies. There's a lot of things that he clearly hasn't watched.
Yes!
Because in all these different formats, we have criminal mastermind kids.
Right! And it's like, but that's exactly why, the entire premise is why the books became well loved and sold millions of copies, and you're telling me we're not gonna get it because you think the audience was too dumb to catch on the idea of a 12-year-old supervillain,
which literally insulted every reader who's ever read the series.
Yes,
because they're saying, "Oh, you read the books, but you're still stupid."
Right, and then Artemis acts like he's way too emotional. He really keeps to himself in the books a lot. Mm-hmm. You hear some inner monologue, but he doesn't show any emotion really on his face. But in here, they got him screaming and crying and laughing, and he's just all over the place like he's got an issue.
And you're like, who is this?
He's like, Mom! When they show his dad, who's getting kidnapped, his dad's played by Colin Farrell for some reason. And
well, because they paid him, and he's a great actor. Colin Farrell's a great actor. And again, it's not the problem is not with the actors and actresses in this movie. We got to point that out again. Colin Farrell is awesome.
We were just surprised that that's who they picked to play his father.
This was not Artemis Fowl the first.
Right, and his father wasn't even in it. He was. They thought he was gone. He was looking for him, but in here he's in just about the whole movie. And I don't know, when they thought he was missing, he was like, my dad!
Okay, let's move on to the next one. We just told you about Artemis Fowl, and the first and the second.
Right. And now we got Laura McDonald playing Holly Short, who acted nothing like Holly Short and looks like nothing like Holly Short.
And definitely look nothing like Holly Short. And here is where it really starts to go sour.
Yeah.
South and sour.
Souther.
The decisions Disney made in casting these characters. Deciding that what Owen Colfer wrote was not what they wanted to present. And amazingly, we read that he says he was fine with it, and we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, that's a whole nother thing.
Holly is described in the book
as having nut brown skin with a coffee complexion. And in here, she is the complete opposite. Altogether. Nothing like the character. And she's a little softer.
And she also had red hair.
Yeah, she has brown hair now.
And it was crew cut.
Yeah, and now she's brown hair.
And it was clear that she was a woman who was the size of a child.
Yeah.
But Disney decided to cast a child who looks like a child from head to toe, totally different from the character in the book.
Right. And it was so bizarre because people were like, well, wait, you got a description here. Why'd you change it? Because everyone who adapts it in comic book form gets it wrong, too. And then this movie botched it completely. Then you have the opposite with a character later.
Now, the thing about Holly and Artemis's relationships in the book is that they didn't start off as friends.
Right, and like this movie.
Will say is he kidnapped her and leave the rest of it to your reading it. But throughout the series of the books, they grew to be friends.
Yes.
But not in this movie. Again, it's opposite day like on SpongeBob.
Right. In like 5 minutes, he kidnaps her. And then after one little conversation about her father, who they thought was a criminal.
Who did not exist in the book except for a mention.
Right. Suddenly, Artemis takes off the glasses that's supposed to keep from hypnotizing him. And in like 5 minutes, he goes from not trusting her to say, "Can't I trust you?" Lets her out the cage, and they become forever friends in 5 minutes. It's like, how did you go from like it took much longer in the books. In this movie, it happens in 5 minutes.
3 books before they trusted each other as friends.
Yeah.
Because the second book, they needed him, but they still weren't sure they could trust him, but they knew he was capable of doing what they needed. By the end of the third book, they were friends. But not Disney.
No, they just rushed out. Like, why did you rush that out? Because in here they wanted to have a race against the clock because Artemis's dad was kidnapped by Opal Kavoy, who shouldn't be here yet.
Yes.
And instead of the Russians taking his dad, it was her, and she needs the Oculus, a thing that didn't even exist in the book.
Which is actually hilarious because not only should she not be appearing yet, but Disney keeps her sheathed in a cloak, and you never see her face. So what was the point of even having her like she was this mysterious character? If you read the bloody book, she wasn't mysterious.
Right, it's like, what are you doing?
We knew who she was. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So let's go to the next character.
Okay, then you have, we already mentioned Josh Gad as Mulch Diggums, who's for some reason a giant dwarf, and in the book, he's comic relief. Mm-hmm. He's kind of disgusting. He farts all the time. His powers, he eats dirt. It comes out the other end. He's like a constant tunnel. In this movie, he looks like he's Haggard. He's Haggard cosplayer. He's got a gravelly voice, and they were trying to make him look attractive for the moms watching. I kid you not. They wanted Mulch Diggums to look hot, and like, why would you do it? And he was cool. He was suave. He had like sort of matted hair. They tried to make him super attractive. Like, what are you doing?
No, in the books, he was a good character. Because you saw character development, which you will never see in... Oh, I shouldn't say that. You will not see in this movie.
Right.
And the character in this movie was not him. As we said...
yeah, Mulch, yeah.
Yeah. The perfect person to play him would have been Peter Dinklage.
Yes.
Absolutely perfect casting. He would have killed the role. But no, it seems that Disney did not want to cast people that were accurate to the role. And so they did.
Right.
The end.
Right.
So we don't get Peter Dinklage, we get Josh Gad. Great as a snowman, not as a dwarf.
And then he's constantly narrating the entire film. He is the narrator and a character who knows way too much about these characters not showing up until the third act. And for some reason, he's the framing device. He knows everything
like
about...
They took the last paragraph of the last book that ends the entire series, and they made the entire movie based on that one paragraph of this character.
Right.
And he wasn't even the character
that said
who said it. Exactly.
It was like, what? And then the whole time I've seen people were just annoyed, like, can Mulch shut up?
What did I keep saying the entire movie?
Can you shut up? Can you shut up? He doesn't stop talking.
Not in my mind. I couldn't stop saying it to the screen. Please shut up. Would you please shut up? Would you please shut up?
Every time something happened, Mulch had to narrate everything that happened on the screen. And then Butler had to just narrate. And everyone kept saying crap throughout the entire thing.
And let us now get to Butler.
Yeah.
Who you should never know his first name.
But in here, you can't call him Butler. He gets really offended by that. So you got to call him Dom.
Which no one's ever supposed to know. Because once you use his name, then something is wrong because he's this really elite, top secret, I guess you can say, espionage person who has watched over Artemis since the day he was born.
Yes.
So he's his bodyguard.
Right.
And in the book, he's described as being Eurasian. He could, you could look at him and think he's either Russian or Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
Then you get to the movie. And again, true to opposite days on SpongeBob.
He looks nothing like the character.
He's played by Anansi.
Anonso Anansi.
Yes. And
Who's
not
got
only
white...
does he look totally the opposite of what the book has, he doesn't even look in his figure or his presence the way it's described.
Right. He's got white hair now, and he's got light blue eyes for some reason. It's like, what?
And he's much older,
right.
And he doesn't look like he could be
and he can't
Japanese
fight.
or Russian.
And he can't fight. They just tell you he can fight, but he doesn't fight.
And it's not the problem with the actor. Again, it's the problem that this is like the negative, the total flip side, and I mean negative as in picture taking, of what the character, how the character is presented in the book. And in the book, he's like a James Bond type character. He's very athletic, he's physical, he's badass. And in here, the character does nothing.
Nothing.
He does nothing. He gives off this presence of being fatherly, which would be fine if he were a fatherly character.
Right, he
but in
wasn't.
the books, he's not. He's Artemis's friend, but he's more like a protective big brother, and there's not the warm fatherly thing going on between them. There's not the do what I say and Artemis does it. Artemis is clearly in the books in charge, and Butler does exactly as he's directed.
Yes.
Artemis will take suggestions. He will ask him his opinion. He can make comments, but the person in charge is Artemis Fowl.
Right.
But again, on opposite day for this movie, he's not.
Right. They even have a scene where he and Butler are like fighting fairies, and suddenly, for some reason, they got weapons that can transform to different things, and Artemis can fight for some reason, though he could like snap like a twig if you push him hard enough. They just screwed up that too, and Butler can't really fight in here because of who they casted, so he kind of just does some things where he just throws people and has imaginary weapons, and that's about as far as they go. So he can't even do the things that they claim he can do, which is what they do a lot. They say, Artemis is a genius, he's a criminal mastermind, he's a genius. Why don't you show us?
Because, again, it's worse than The Last Airbender. And in The Last Airbender, when you watched it, that was a huge problem for that movie. They kept telling you everything. They didn't show you. They just kept telling you and giving these long diatribes about what was happening when you wanted to see what was happening.
Right.
And this movie, for some reason, they decided to take that from here and apply it to here.
Right.
And that is one really huge failure for this movie altogether. I mean, there's just a long list that's just too exhaustive to go through.
Yes, we'll be here all an hour if we have to go through everything.
But that's one of the big, huge problems. And the last character we're going to point out as opposite day is Root.
Yes, Commander
Julius Root.
Yeah, who's played by Judi Dench.
Dame Judi Dench.
Yes,
and the thing is, in the book, Root was male. Okay, so maybe they just did a casting of the opposite gender, which is no problem. We've seen that in movies before. That's fine. But again, just like SpongeBob Opposites Day, she's the total opposite of whom the character was.
Right.
Just having a gender change is not a problem. But when she doesn't act like the character, she doesn't act like the character at all, and when the point of her being male changes the whole dynamic for the first book, in this case, the movie, that's a problem.
Yes, that was a major thing in the book, was that Holly was the first female, they call it leprechaun officer. And his thing was that he wanted her to prove herself, so she was the only officer there. But in this movie, if Root's female, and then you can see throughout the movie in the cast, there's a ton of female officers, and you got Commander Root being female. So Holly's character arc is just thrown out the window for proving her father wasn't a criminal.
Right. And yes, he was, like they had Dame Dench, acting gruff and gravelly and so forth. But there was a difference for how the character is written in the book. Yes, he was kind of tough on her, but he explained to her in the beginning, I'm tough on you, but not for the reason you think, And he told her he didn't want her to fail. He fully supported her, and she was a darn good officer. And he supported her.
Right.
So it wasn't like, ooh, this man wants to...
We can't show this, yeah.
This man wants to keep her down and do this because she's a woman.
Obviously,
and that
someone
was
thought
really
that.
what was another standout part of this story. He supported her, and he wanted her to do well. He promoted her because of it, and he wanted to promote her again. And it was said in the book by the character herself that she looked up to him like a father figure. He was old enough to be her granddad at 800, but she looked at him as a father figure. Well, you couldn't do any of that crap with Dame Dench being brute.
Right. And that really messed it up because the whole time you're distracted, her sounding like this the whole movie. It was like, what's going on? Why do all the men have these gravelly Batman voice competition voices? It's so strange.
So quick round through. Juliet, instead of being Eurasian, she's like Butler, and instead of being 18, older than Artemis, she's now Artemis's age, so she can be a playmate.
Yes, it's his best friend who appears for 3 shots of the whole movie, and what she does, she makes him. Her contribution to the movie that she makes a sandwich. That is literally it. She has no skills. She can't do anything. That is it. She makes him a sandwich that he wouldn't even eat because it was regular food.
But the worst atrocity in this movie, as far as characters, was the killing off of Artemis's mother. Don't understand why they did it.
Because it's Disney.
She was
It's Disney.
Okay.
All they do is that.
Yes, we do understand why, but in the book, she's a huge focal point. The whole first book, she is one of the central characters, and why. One of the 2 reasons why everything is happening in the book. And in the book series, she makes it all the way through. She doesn't die.
Right.
But for Disney, they decided that the mom didn't need to be there, and all the focus will come off of the parents and being just the dad. And then Artemis suddenly has a relationship with his dad that never happens in the book. And he loved his parents, and his parents love him, but oh, Dad, all I really want to be
believing is you.
It's
It's like,
never
what
happened.
kind of line is that? That was worse than we are friends, forever friends.
At that point, I almost turned the movie off, and Rascal begged me not to. I was done. I was like, I'm done with this movie. No, we gotta finish it. Oh,
and then, go ahead. There's so much.
So we've gone on about the characters. So we just really need to tell you that this movie is nothing like the books. If you haven't seen it, pay attention and listen to the majority of the reviews. I would say like 98% of the reviews are negative for this movie. You've got some people that either haven't read the books,
yes,
or who have read the books and just don't mind because they're happy the movie was made, and that's understandable.
Right. And here's one thing that's even really crazy, but after you continue.
Seeing this movie would just be to see just how bad it is.
Yeah.
It would just to watch it if you're curious and what happened, then watch it. But if you're watching to get an accurate characterization, and they claimed that they combined books 1 and 2. They didn't.
No, they took pieces of 2 and threw it in.
And if you're looking for an accurate representation of the series, then you might as well not spend your money or watch this movie, because you're not going to get it in any shape or form.
No. Oh, man. And then on top of it is 2 things. One, the movie made no money back because it went straight to Disney+. So unless you get money from subscriptions, they made no money back from this movie, period. And then the second thing would be that all the events of the movie, none of them are stick with her. They have this thing about the Oculus being this thing everyone wants, but they don't explain why.
And the book is no longer book. It looks like
an acorn.
It looks like, the book itself, when they first showed it, it looked like, if you've seen the movie The Mummy, it looks like the little box they put into the book to activate it so that the mummy could come back. That's what it looks like at first. And it's octagonal. It's hexagonal. Mm-hmm. And then later on, it looks like an acorn. It's like, wait a minute. First of all, that's 2 different things. Second, neither of them are a book. And third, why is it glowing like it's a salt lamp?
Right? It's like, what? It's like this is a thing that never existed, and they don't tell you anything about it. Oh, it can make portals. What else can it do? I don't know. Why do people want it? I don't know. It's it's too dangerous for the fairies to have, but they made it. Why are you stealing it from them? Why did a fairy help Artemis's dad take it? And then Artemis's dad knows everything about fairies, and Artemis knew nothing.
And if you've never read the books, guess what? The book was just a book.
Right.
It was just a book with written secrets. That's it.
Right. Now
I don't know why they needed to make it this grand spy thing, but for some reason they did.
And then on top of that is oh my gosh. I mean, there's more, but we have to stop.
We're limiting ourselves to our regular podcast time because there's just way too much.
They were trying.
Now, if you would like to have us do a second podcast telling you more about
Part
the
two,
problems with this movie, let us know in the comments below.
Right. Then they're saying because they were clearly planning to make this into a franchise, but after this, I couldn't see it. Especially now for this movie, fairies have been exposed to the world thanks to Artemis Fowl, and now he's a criminal mastermind because you said so. So how is this gonna work? It was supposed to be a secret. How if all of Ireland knows about fairies now and you let it out to the world? How's any of this gonna work? They can't adapt any other movie.
The worst part of the whole thing is that usually when a studio buys the rights, a lot of times they may buy them for a period of time. But clearly Disney probably bought this for his entire lifetime. To sit on it for 19 years and not make a movie means they bought the rights to this movie for an extended period of time. They may have actually bought it like the rights to copyright.
Exactly.
And that's unfortunate because someone like Netflix or another studio, and I really would love Netflix, to get a hold of the rights and do a movie that actually replicates the book.
Yes.
Do 8 different movies, one for each book. But it doesn't look like that's going to happen. And if it does, it won't be anytime soon.
Yeah.
And that's really unfortunate because this book series deserves an 8-movie series. It deserves it.
I would take it animated.
It was written like it was supposed to be a movie. I mean, I have to tell you, Colfer's writing is incredible. He's brilliant. It's incredible. It flows. The characters are relatable. You like them. No, actually, you don't like them. You love them. Let's just tell the truth. You love the characters. The villains are villains. Good triumphs over evil every time. There's character development in every character. You go from having these thoughts about Artemis Fowl in the beginning, that he's this criminal mastermind and he's a jerk, to loving this character by the time it's done. And it's unfortunate that this does not get to be displayed in the movie.
Yes. And yeah, this actually has taken the top spot of worst adaptation of all time.
Absolutely.
Never thought would happen, but Disney did it. They managed to beat a record, and wow, I mean, it's really feel bad for the people who watched it because now here's the one last problem with it. Whether you read the books or not, the movie fails on both parts. Some people never read the books and they watched the movie and it was still bad. Even without knowing the source material, it failed to be a good movie, period, or a franchise starter. So now it's another thing Disney can check off until someone decides, hey, can we try it again, actually be accurate? Like someone actually was trying at first and then they just threw it out.
I think this was a big lesson for those of us who watch Disney movies and series and books and things. There is definitely the pattern that Disney does not reference the source material except for maybe character names or locations or something when they do adaptations. For some reason they don't want to give you the books. And we saw this right after this movie. We also watched
Flora and Ulysses.
Flora and Ulysses, thank you. We read the book first, as we said we would do from now on. We got it from the library, read the book, and then we saw the movie. And that movie actually trumps Artemis Fowl and not keeping to the source material. So keep an eye out and listen for that podcast because believe it or not, this one knocks Artemis Fowl down to number 2.
Yeah.
Unbelievable, but it's so.
Yeah.
So if you have either read the Artemis Fowl book series and or seen the movie, let us know what you think in the comments below. Hey, if you liked it, tell us why.
All right.
If you read it and you liked it, really tell us why this movie is okay with you. We're always willing and ready to hear what you have to say. We read all comments, and it's okay if you actually like this movie. But we're going to be honest with you, hated it.
Right. I mean, why did you guys get Aidan Gallagher to play Artemis?
Oh, yes, I'm so glad you mentioned that before we sign off. Aidan Gallagher would have been absolutely perfect.
And everyone kept thinking that's who they thought they were going to get to play the role. That was in the talks for a while until it came out and they were like, who is this?
But again, it's not Ferdia's fault.
Right.
He could only perform the way they wanted him to perform. But again, the scene where he's in the school with the psych, and that was perfect. That was Artemis Fowl right there. And that's the only part of the film that is salvageable. And that is why, that's the third reason it gets the 2. There you go. That's 3%. The third reason. Because that was the best scene of the entire movie. And if the rest of the movie could have been like that, and if they allowed Ferdia Shaw to perform and to portray Artemis in the way he did there, and stuck to the source material, even if you give it a 75% and got creative with the rest, that would have been fine. But to just not reference it at all, it seems like you didn't even reference it.
No, it's like
Took
you
place
just
in Ireland. Artemis' name Artemis Fowl. The dad's name Artemis Fowl too. The characters have the character names, and then you went off on your own tangent and decided this is what we want the movie to be. And to that, I would say, write another movie. Make a movie be the way you want. Hire people that can write and create what it is you want to convey. You've got all these fan fiction writers. You've got all these writers who have written books and that are unknowns. There's no reason to take beloved book series and destroy them. There's no other way to put it.
Oh, gosh,
you can create like you used to do when Disney was very young, and in the 50s and from the 30s to the 60s, Disney was creative, and they hired people to write originals, movies, and stories, and it was fantastic.
Exactly.
And that's the Disney we want to see back, that creates original stories and doesn't destroy ones that are beloved.
Exactly.
Disney, we still watch your movies and shows, but this was an affront to Artemis Fowl fans everywhere.
Yes.
Both new and original.
Yes. So, be sure to like, subscribe, and go occasionally updates on future podcasts and What About's videos, or part 2 if you want to hear more about how bad this movie is.
And if you haven't seen this movie and you have Disney Plus, and
you
just want to see if it's really as bad as everyone, the majority of people are saying, give it a watch and let us know what you think in the comments below. Phoenix!
Yeah? So, thank you so much for watching. I'm Rascal Entertainment.
And I'm Mom Entertainment.
Have a fantastic day.
Peace.
And reporters sitting, flashing lights, trying to walk around, man, who the hell are you? What you wanna do? Well, man, it's on you. Man, it's on you. Met her in my dreams, she was my queen. A castle in the mountaintops, rivers and streams. Plucking sunlight from the sky in my pocket, giving